The average person will spend 90,000 hours at their job over the course of their lifetime. Shouldn't you be doing something you love? Welcome to Second Chapter Careers, the podcast that shares real stories of real people who left unsatisfying or imperfect jobs to pursue careers they love, offering you inspiration and practical insights to help you find a career that truly transforms your life. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Second Chapter Careers. Today, I'm excited and honored to have Sara Gochberg. This is a very special episode for me because we literally just met and I said, I have to hear her story. And when I heard her give a teaser about it in another forum, I said, I have to get this awesome person on this podcast. And we just met and I don't even know the whole story. So I'm excited to hear about it together with all of you. Welcome, Sara.
Thank you, Sari. Thank you for that really gracious and generous offer. And thank you for reaching out. And it is so fabulous to connect with other businesswomen. I'm a people person. I love hearing what people are doing. And it sounds like what you're doing is pretty incredible. And you've got your own impressive career track as well.
Thank you. I'm excited to share what you do now because it's so innovative, I guess. But before we talk about what you do now, please tell us a little bit about how you got your career beginnings.
Okay. So I grew up in Brooklyn. I went through the Beis Yaakov system, typical Beis Yaakov family, but I grew up in a very open home and we would read that newspaper that shall not be mentioned that comes in that blue plastic bag. And I'm not a morbid person. I loved reading the obituaries, the people, the historical figures, the politicians, the heads of industry, founders of incredible companies. And I remember when I was in 8th grade, we had a fabulous American history teacher, and it was a political election year, a presidential year, Miss Itzkowitz. And I just loved history. I loved politics. I loved the strategy. And in high school, I loved biology, but I was squeamish. So being a doctor wasn't in the cards. And I really, really saw that I wanted to go into either business or law. And my mother, who originally was a teacher, and then taught French. She got a degree in French. We have no French blood, but this is my mother. And she worked for a big advertising agency and then started her own firm, which eventually evolved into a designer imitation studio. And so I saw firsthand what running a small business meant, the commitment, the challenges, the cash flow cycles. And I really wanted to work in corporate or work in a law firm. And so I knew through reading that newspaper and the educational sections and the business sections, I was going to NYU Stern School of Business. Now, you have to realize my high school didn't have a guidance counselor. This was something I figured out on my own. My parents were incredibly supportive. My father helped me fill out my application. I got in for early decision and I went to NYU and I double majored in accounting and finance and I minored in poli-sci because there was no pre-law program. So you did poli-sci and I loved everything. I loved the poli-sci, the strategy, the critical thinking. I loved the finance and the accounting. And when I turned, right before I started college, I started working at a party rental company, another small business experience. And they gave me an incredible amount of responsibility. The owners took off during the summer and I was managing this party rental company. I laugh now thinking about it. I was 19 years old and bossing around these truck drivers. So that was another incredible experience. And I did it throughout college and I graduated in December and I thought I was going to apply for law school, that I wasn't really even heavily interviewing. I wasn't listening to what was out there. And my business law professor said to me, "You really good finance and accounting background. Go check it out. Go see what it's all about." So I interviewed at a lot of those big name firms and ended up at Alex Brown, which was a New York subsidiary or shop of a Baltimore-based firm as a junior high-yield restaurant industry analyst. That's how I started my Wall Street career. And then 6 weeks into it, or probably 2 months into it, Alex Brown got bought by Bankers Trust. So that's how I started my career. And I was very fortunate. I moved over to TD and that's my investment banking, that's where my investment banking career took off.
And do you feel any regret that you never went to law school?
So I don't regret that I didn't go to law school. And part of it was the parts that I love about law, the research, the case study, the history. that's not so much what I would have been doing. And the other piece was, as an investment banker, yes, it is everything you read in the books and you see in the movies. It is a crazy, fabulous lifestyle. And it's also crazy hours working. And when I would leave the office at 11, the attorneys would still have to work for another 2, 3 hours to turn the doc, to research certain issues that came up, to figure out how to solve certain structural issues and paper it and document it. That when we walked back in the office at 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, I expected on my computer a updated document. So those were those moments where I was like, I wouldn't be practicing the law I wanted to. And as crazy as my hours were, there were still crazier hours. So
It's
I never
interesting.
regretted it. And my husband's
You
actually
know,
also an attorney, and he did practice for a year or two, and then he pivoted and went to work for a client, and that's how his Wall Street career started. So we have a lot of lawyer interests, but none of us are none are practicing lawyers.
that's such a it's really ironic because I don't know if you listened to my last episode, but just
I
last
did.
week I interviewed Leanne Foreman,
Yes.
and she was a lawyer and her husband was a lawyer too. And she said there's just not enough time in the day for two people in a couple to be lawyers. It's to be like high powered lawyers.
Right.
It's just too much,
Definitely
which
could
is a
see
thing.
that. My husband's on Wall Street, but he's on the trading side. So his hours are very different than my Wall Street hours were. And we found a balance, but it definitely was, it definitely is a challenge. And, what Leanne echoed, you need help, get help, lean on people, get resources.
Can you describe for those who might be interested in working in finance and on Wall Street, what does a typical day look like, or what did it look like for you during those years?
Okay, I would like to imagine that it has changed a little bit, but I'm not sure that it has given my interaction with people who are in the Wall Street career starting. So it's really depending if you're on the trading side, the sales, the trading side or the banking side. And even within banking, depending which division, which focus you're on, whether, it's senior debt financing, whether it's private placements. So, but generally it is what you would imagine. It is a lot of hours of working. It is hard work. Definitely is challenging. You get exposed to the most fascinating people. Given the right work environment with the right people, you have a lot of incredible opportunities. But it definitely is a commitment that, family for me has always been my first priority. And that's something that I've always been non negotiable about. But that for me meant working crazy hours, not getting a lot of sleep, juggling priorities, and really figuring out a way, you can't have it all. You really can't. And there were trade-offs, but it's really understanding, the people around you, understanding your priorities. And there's choices. You don't always get to say my family's my most important thing. I'm going to choose A. Sometimes you have to miss certain things. Or sometimes I've made numerous perm suitas and then at 2 in the morning was up for 3 hours finalizing an offering memorandum for a client. So, there are trade-offs and it worked for me. And every person has to figure out what works for them. But there is a lot of opportunity and it's just really, it's a lot of, to me it's like you have to love what you're doing to be working like that. And that's a big thing that I always tell people. My career has had many pivots and many different directions, and I've always been guided by partially my family, and I'm very fortunate. I have an incredible support system and the biggest cheerleaders, but it's also been like, does this align with what I want to be doing? What makes me happy? What gives me satisfaction? Which at the end of the day, if I'm going to be working this hard, I have to love what I'm doing. Now, we don't all get to love what we're doing, and there are different parts of my job, whichever phase in my career that I've loved and didn't love. We don't love everything that we do, but overall, you have to feel a passion for it, or it really becomes like, who wants to get up in the morning? I love getting up
Yes.
I'm excited to get up in the morning. I'm excited what my day has ahead of me. Even after dinner, from sitting down at my computer, I'm excited what I'm going to be doing and sharing.
Absolutely. That's actually why I became a career coach, because I just met too many people who just fell into their careers or took advice from the wrong person. You can listen if you want to
Right.
Rabbi Anthony Manning's episode and Tamara Gestetner. Both of them mentioned that like they had guides in their lives who just didn't know them well enough. And I think that that's such a common problem. I said to myself, we have to fix this problem. Like we need to make a system where people can find what they're going to love, not just fall into it and hope for the best. And a lot of what you said really resonates with me because that's my life mission, is to help people find what they love.
At one point, I
And there
actually
may be compromises involved.
There are. At one point, actually sat down with the career coach through my different evolutions where I was at a cross point in the early 20s, maybe after COVID was starting to get a little bit more manageable. And I was trying, and it made me realize, okay, if I'm going to be doing something, this is the time that I'm going to be doing it. I mean, there's always second and third and fourth careers, but you don't want to be 60 and doing that, or you could be. And I totally respect that. But for me, it was like, okay, I'm either going to make this big pivot now, or I'm just going to be happy with where I'm at. And I actually spoke to somebody, and I spoke to, a career coach, a career consultant, and I actually spoke to a lot of different people to really figure out what I wanted to be doing next, building on everything that I had been doing for the past 20 years.
Okay, so I want to talk about that pivot and where you are now, but first, to backtrack, why did you feel like you wanted to or needed to pivot at that time?
So originally, when I left Wall Street, I had been working at TD. I had been through I was very fortunate. I worked on many different parts on the investment banking and the trading side. I had wonderful mentors who I didn't even really understand how much they were mentoring me and giving me opportunities. I had been through two derivative market meltdowns, but the first one was when I was still at TD, and I had gotten married in the middle of all this. And after a few months, I realized that the Wall Street life and the investment banking life is great, but that's not aligned with the life I want to be building. So I switched into a more part-time position, and then eventually went to work with someone who I'd worked with at TD, who started their own shop. And then when there was the big 2008 meltdown in the market, I'm like, you know what? It's been really wonderful, but I want something that's more rewarding and validating for me, and that I feel like I'm giving back. And that's when I really launched my own firm, and I started focusing on non-for-profits and for small businesses. And I was doing it all pro bono. So I was doing that all pro bono for
Wow.
a bunch of years, and I loved it. I love sharing my experiences for big businesses, applying them for small businesses. Nonprofits, I always say it has to be run like a business with a heart, but like a business. And I also talk about like the money that they're leaving on the table. That's always my focus, even with business strategy. It's like not what you're doing, but the opportunities that you've already built in that you're not monetizing and taking advantage of. And to condense like a decade of my life, I was doing a lot of stuff that was all pro bono. And I think if you're doing something for free, people may not be as inclined to take your advice and implement what you're suggesting because they're not paying for it. So I would tell people, if you take away a few things from my conversation, one is that know your value, which I did. I just had this overriding need to give back. But I realized at a certain point that was causing burnout, because nobody wants to invest in something and work on something and then not seeing the full implementation. So that was a piece of it. And I was also working crazy hours. I'm a workaholic. Whether it was in
Yes.
college and I had two majors, a minor, and running a business, I work a lot. And if I'm volunteering, it doesn't really matter. I give it my all. And I really felt like, okay, I'm getting to this point. And my family, at that point, we also had moved to Miami in 2019. And my family was like, okay, you're either turning this into a business or you're sitting on the beach all day. I mean, not really sitting on
Yeah.
the beach all day, although I do live on the beach. And it was a pivotal moment for me to decide, do I go back to corporate? Do I start my own business? Do I, just decide to work? I had a few offers from non-for-profits, but that didn't feel aligned with what I wanted to be doing. And I really wanted to be my own boss. And that's when, after a lot of thought and conversation, I decided to start within our family office a small strategic advisory firm. And I'm using the word small deliberately. I was not looking to create this massive company. I was looking to do something, work with people that challenged me, that I was excited to work with, not have 30 clients. I wanted to have a select amount of clients, and I wanted to try to have a better work-life balance. So that was really where, from my investment banking career to where I was doing a lot of non-for-profit pro bono. In the middle of that, I call myself the accidental founder of the Melava Malka challenge that happened in 2018. And that still is my primary client. I joke, that's my number one client. But I really felt like, you know what, this was a time, make this decision, implement it, and see what happens. And then I merrily went along for 2-3 years doing that, and I loved it. And then I fell down the AI hole. And that is the
Wait,
newest.
pause. Gotta pause because I have to backtrack on
Okay.
so many things you just said.
Sorry.
First of
Okay.
all, since we just met, I'll
Right.
just pick up on the fact that you went from finance to nonprofit because I did that.
That's
Uh,
right. Right.
and I also, when I left finance, I felt like I need to find more meaning. And where do you find meaning in nonprofit?
Right. Exactly.
And it was meaningful, but I burned out so quickly. I feel a little bit like nonprofits are kind of needy, not in a bad way, but for anyone who thinks, and I say this, I think I've said this on a couple of episodes already, whoever thinks that the only way to find meaning is to work for nonprofits, I would like to challenge that because having made that mistake myself, I can tell you it is not true. There's just so many ways you can find meaning applying your own talents and in other ways, in other companies that do great things that aren't necessarily clothing the naked or feeding the poor. But
I
it's
love
so
that.
easy to see those needs that everything else may be lost.
So I always say that. Like people say, why do you do what you do? Because even though I am a business model, I share a lot of free information. I do a lot of free, I don't know what to call it, consultations, and I'm out there always sharing knowledge, sharing deep knowledge, not surface knowledge. And I'm like, there's nothing that excites me and drives me more than seeing business women. And my clients are men, my clients are corporates. I have all different size clients. To me, I'm a very ethical, straight person. So it's a question of if I can provide value for what you need. And if I'm not the right person, let me help you find the right person. But nothing fires me up more. And my way of feeling like you can give and have meaning and do for others is helping other people have a successful business, however they define success. That's a really big
I
part
love
for
that.
me is that your success has to be your definition and not other people's. Now, obviously, we have a financial reality and we live with families and we have other, communal responsibilities. But really, it's important that you define success by your definition and nobody else's, because then work, again, is just something that is miserable. So to me, that is something that I feel I give back, but am really passionate about. Nothing excites me as seeing somebody being successful and me being, I always say, I'm honored to be part of people's strategic journeys.
I could not agree more. And it sounds like if you ever need another pivot, sounds like you'd make a great career counselor because you have a lot of
It's called
open-mindedness
experience. It's called experience.
and
It's called
experience.
experience. And,
You mentioned the Malava Malka challenge. What is
yeah.
that?
Okay, so back in 2018, I decided that we needed a little bit more bracha in our life, and I decided to start washing from Lava Malka. I'm a bit of a foodie. My mother, my mother-in-law are the most amazing cooks. My sister-in-laws on both sides of our family, and we all talk about food. We share recipes, and because I've lived in many different cities and have many different parts of my life, I was not, even though I was around when the internet came of age, I was not a big proponent of social media, but it really utilized it in the way social media was initially created to stay connected to people. This whole influential model was a secondary thing in social media. Originally, it was how people stayed connected. So I was sharing on my WhatsApp status and I started an Instagram account in 2018. And part of that was to support events that I was chairing for non-for-profits. And that was our target audience who was on social media. And I was sharing my food. So I decided I'll share what I'm washing on from Lava Malka. And knowing me, I had to have a slogan, I had to have a name. So I called it the Melava Malka Challenge and what are you washing on? And it went viral, or my definition for my scope of viral. And people were like, what's this recipe? It's my mother-in-law's famous, we call it the House of G grilled cheese. And but they were more like into like, what's his Melava Malka business and what are you washing on? And my friends made it a thing. I'm the accidental founder. This was never, I've started a lot of shidduch and communal related initiatives. This was not something I was starting. And it just took on a life of its own. And Baruch Hashem, we just started season 8. We're a global initiative. I'm deliberately not making it a non-for-profit, given my non-for-profit experiences. It is a communal initiative, inspiring and creating awareness about the mitzvah Melava Malka. And really our ambassadors are people who share the content weekly, have made it what it is today. So I'm just the accidental founder, and I'm honored to be a part of it. And it's really the sole
Well,
purpose is to inspire people to wash from Lava Malka and learn more about the halachos, because that was not something I was doing growing up. We had pizza and ice skating, but we weren't washing from Lava Malka.
well, I'm just smiling from ear to ear, and I'm gonna share this story publicly, which I really never have because it sounds maybe a little voodoo, but I
Okay.
guess you'll appreciate it. Um, I have an 18-year-old daughter, among other children, and when I was pregnant with her, she was breech the entire pregnancy and also a low birth weight. I say that in quotes because she ended up to not be a low birth weight baby. And every 2 weeks for the entire pregnancy, from the 20th week till the end, I would go for an ultrasound and they would say, "She's still breech, she's still breech, she's still breech." And I tried everything. I checked every book in this library to make sure none of them were upside down. I stood on my head in my ninth month and nothing was working. And every time I'd go and they'd say, she's still breech. And at the very end, my husband said to me, I heard that if you eat Malava Malka, it's a skula for an easy childbirth. And I said, okay. And I ate 2 Malava Malkas. And in the 38th week, I went for that sonogram and they said, she flipped over by herself. Go now. Go give birth this minute. And for 18 years, I have not missed 1 week,
Okay. You
except
have to
the
join.
day that my grandfather died, which happened to be on a Shabbos, and I was with him. That week, I just could not bring myself to eat
Right.
anything. And I said, God will forgive me. But like, I don't know anyone else who does it besides the two of us.
Okay, you have to join the Melava Malka challenge because that was the
I would love
fascinating
to.
thing. People were saying to me, either they were like myself, who grew up, regular base Yaakov background. My family is Litvax. We didn't wash. Or they were like, "Oh, I do this." I'm like, "Really?" Like even I'm as the founder, I've done a lot of PR. I write letters to magazines, and I had an uncle who reached out to me and said, "We wash." I said, "You do?" Like, I didn't know this. So it's a beautiful initiative. It's a warm communal initiative. And I'm just honored to be a part of it and be part of the growing it and create. Really, I did it to create awareness, and I've seen tremendous bracha for everybody who's involved in it. I'm not a schooler person. If you know me, I'm really not a schooler person, but this is a mitzvah, and it's just learning the halachos has transformed our understanding of it. And we're a fun group. Every week we actually post on the chat what we wash on. I know it sounds really funny.
I would love to join that, and I will share the information in the show notes for anyone else who wants
Okay.
to. I will give a disclosure. I do not find it easy. A lot of weeks it's really hard, especially in the summer when you just ate shalosh shodis or you're not hungry after Shabbos. Like, it's not an easy thing to do. It's been really sometimes a
Well,
challenge,
Well,
but
that's why we
yeah.
start the season every year when the clock changes, because if you're going to try it now
Mhm.
when Shabbos is over and you have time afterwards and then you get hungry again. And when I first started, I wasn't washing continuously. I would start it and then perm time stop and then start it again. And then probably in year 3 or 4, I added in an email group and a WhatsApp group. And that really created this like support. And now I don't miss it. Besides when I've been like the flu, I have never missed, even if it's matzah and tea, it's still you're washing. And it's just an incredible, it's just an incredible part of my life. It's a big, there's a lot of content we create weekly because that's the way we keep the energy going. But I love it. And that's what I also tell people.
Fascinating.
So I tell people, if you're working on in a position or a job that a lot of times there are financial realities and you have a good job and you may have to keep your job, you have other responsibilities, find things in your life that balance it, that give you joy, that make you feel excited about what you're doing. I also tell people exercise I'm a runner, is a really important part of mental health and balance and dealing with challenges. So like for me, Melava Malka Challenge is an honor and it is a responsibility, and I have to provide content weekly, twice a week, but it's also something that gives me such joy and satisfaction. On the days,
Fantastic.
because not every day, even though I'm my own boss and I've started my own company and I do what I love to do, not every day is a day that you're like, oh my gosh, it was amazing. There are moments, you know?
Absolutely. So now that we've gotten here, and first of all, thank you for that little tangent. I'm just so
Yes.
fascinated, and I can't wait to join it and not be
Okay,
alone
great.
in this anymore.
Okay, yes.
So tell us about what you do now.
Okay. So what happened was in 2022, I don't remember, I'm really not good with dates because I've had so many pivots where I was really focusing on small businesses, doing some M&A work, and really being selective about my clients. I had been using Canva to create Melava Malka Challenge content. Canva started using AI in late 2022. And I'm also, as a business person, I process an insane amount of information and research and knowledge, and I'm on webinars. It's just part of my personality and part of being a strategic advisor. You need to know a lot about a lot of things. And so I started getting involved in AI and I felt rejuvenated. I was just like, oh my gosh, I'm like leaving college and starting Wall Street again, that type of feeling was every part of it was incredible. Now, when I started actually using AI in Canva, it was the same type of thing. It was slow and you had limited amount of attempts you could do a day. And the quality was so, and you'd have to edit it. And some of it you could use, some of it you couldn't use. And they didn't always get what you wanted. But that was my first introduction to AI. So I thank Melava Malka Challenge for that. And I had been reading about it and hearing about it. And it was fascinating to me. And I was jumping on these webinars with the international community communities, because certain parts of it, they were way ahead in the US. I probably understood every 5 words that were being spoken. And I reached out to people and started developing relationships and started trying out different products. And, some of them I had no clue what I was doing. Other ones I was like, wow, this is really incredible. And I was blown away by what I was seeing. Now, I had been around when the internet came of age, so I understood what was happening. And I really felt that our community was not getting it. They were just not getting what AI was, the potential and where this was going to go, the impact it would have on businesses, and how it would become, like I say, utility essential. So I made this decision within our family office that I was going to be much more public. And speak about AI and share AI and knowledge and resources and training and integration. Um, I did. And so that was I probably realized that somewhere in early 2024. And at the end of 2024, I did a session called 5 Strategic Moves Every Business Needs for 2025, because essentially I'm a strategic advisor first. And one part was AI. And I could tell from people's reactions and the comments that I knew I had hit it on the head, that our community, this was December of 2025, this was a year ago, our community was not embracing AI. And I just felt such a sense of responsibility. I don't want to say as like a senior member or like, just somebody who had been around for 25 years and had seen different trends and working with small businesses and understanding that this was a fundamental risk to their long-term future. So I have been out there for the past year, very vocal on different platforms, sharing knowledge, resources, expertise, training. And probably around the summer, I'm like, wow, our community is incredible. When they get it and they jump in. They're like becoming like thought leaders and they're, starting businesses and they're adapting. I'm like, great. I'm going back to my family office and just, being under the radar screen. I don't love having to produce content and thought pieces so frequently. I love sharing thoughts, but doing it in a professional capacity, even though AI is amazing for helping me do that. And I started to realize in like the third quarter of this past year of 2025 that people are recognizing the importance of AI, but they're not using it properly in their business. So they're missing out on the opportunities. They're actually putting extra work and time on themselves that's low generating revenue returns. And I just realized like, okay, I can't go back to my beach in my family office. I have to continue what I felt was like this calling to really create awareness now about integrating AI properly in your business. And I'm really hoping that like our community will get it again, like in 3 months. So then I'm joking. I think I've gone down the AI rabbit hole. I haven't come up since the end of 2022. And I'm not really sure how I know how to get out of it anymore because I really love it and enjoy it. And the power of AI used properly is incredible. And it's something that's accessible to everybody. You don't have to be a tech person. You don't have to be a coder.
Right. Yeah, I think that there's a lot of people are using AI for, kind of like the more obvious tasks, content generation and images and what have you, maybe even some analysis. What types of tasks do you work with your clients on to help them master it?
Okay, so I always tell people there's generative AI, which is creating the images and the videos and writing songs and even content creation, which is really fabulous. But if you're not a creative, if you're not someone who has been creating that content in the past for the purpose of your business, it's not really driving your revenue numbers. Remember, I'm a strategist. I'm always looking at your growth and your cash flow. So it may be fun and I love it. I mean, people who see me on my platforms, what I do with Gamma and Suno is really, I have a lot of fun. But really, the most effective way to use AI in your business is to look at your workflows and your low value hour work, the nitty gritty stuff that run a business, but really doesn't require your expertise. That's repetitive tasks that people could be doing, that people are doing over and over again to support their businesses. And that's where you start putting AI in your business. You find 2 or 3 workflows that are basic, that are time consuming, that really don't require that much expertise. And that's where you bring AI in and you create automations. Whether, there's many different ways to do automation, whether you're using APIs. I don't want to throw out terms that are going to confuse people. Whether now even the tools are getting much better where they're creating the integration. Or what our firm uses is we have a dashboard of many different tools. It's not our proprietary dashboard, but it's something that we can use and other people can have access to also. They started to roll it out, and our affiliate has started to roll it out in a much bigger rollout, and they've upgraded it to a completely new level that in the past I wouldn't recommend it. Now I recommend it. But so what I recommend to people is really focus on where you have value in your business, that a workflow is really going to take out that time consuming piece, because that's where you're going to see the biggest return on investment. And it's not about how many tools you're using, it's how much more work you're getting done and how many less errors you're making, because it takes out a lot of the human error piece of it. That's where I tell people to start. The other piece I tell people is if you're not a technical person, every business needs to have someone in the business that has AI capabilities, but for most small businesses, it is a much smarter play in terms of your time, your investment, your ROI. Hire somebody who knows what they're doing and who's done this for 5 other businesses in your industry, who does this 24/7, who stays up on top of the latest AI advancements, because chances are they're going to do it better. They'll do it more economically, and they'll also be a resource you can use in the future because AI is constantly evolving. So, for someone like me who initially when AI came out, I'm like, no, I can be a generative AI person. And I still do create videos and create pictures. Now, I have to say, with each model rollout and iteration, the tools are getting so much better that you need less and less technical knowledge to actually do, let's say, the videos. But is that your core business? Really, the biggest return on investment I see in my own business is streamlining the workflows. So the parts that I add value, the strategic analysis, my expertise of 25 years being a strategic business advisor, as much as AI can replicate me and you can ask AI to be your strategic business advisor, there's that piece, and that's why AI won't replace us, that if you don't know the right questions to ask, even if you say to AI, what am I not asking, or how would a strategic, you're just missing that piece of analysis that AI hasn't really captured. So you may get 80%, and that's okay for a lot of people. But I'm saying the real value that people provide, AI hasn't figured out yet how to really tap into it and get rid of you. So I say to people, use AI to do what you're doing, to do it better, to do more of it, but not to really just focus on the pretty fun stuff. And really the way we tell people is, just so I give people something to think about, is identify one workflow, one area in your business, set up a workflow, test it out, and then if it's working, roll it out. And you don't want to be doing 7 things at once. Pick one workflow, or depending on the size of the business, 1 or 2 workflows, and that's where you focus on. I also tell people anyone who you hire today must have AI knowledge and experience. I also tell people if you're a bigger company, the people in your business who have AI knowledge are the ones that you need to retain and promote and make sure they have more training, because that is essential for growing any business.
Okay. I have a lot of questions. You just threw out a lot of interesting things. So the first question I have is how in your strategic planning, how are you using AI differently or better than the workflow tools that are out there like Monday, Asana, or Trello that maybe have AI baked in already, or that don't have AI baked into their workflow but still streamline workflows. I hate the word streamline because it like the word streamline, like when you read it, it's like AI wrote this. But
Right.
sometimes like when you're speaking, it just
So that's why, every business is different. So I don't like to give a generic answer, but so just so people understand, there are experts out there who will come into your company and do a review, and they will work with the systems that you have in place. Given their expertise working with other businesses, they can say, like I just had a call yesterday with a large client who is using a system that product made sure to stay updated with AI. So I wouldn't bring in another thing I'll put in. A lot of people always say to me, I have an AI issue. Most of the time, you don't have an AI issue. You have a strategic business issue, and AI is just part of the
interesting.
problem and it's part of your solution. I can't tell you in the past year how many people have reached out to me and they think they have an AI problem. And like I say, it is part of it, but it's really a strategy issue. I always tell people strategy first, AI second. If you don't have a strategy, AI just layers in more chaos, confusion, overwhelm, waste of money. And you even need a strategy for AI. So I tell people that bring in a consultant, make that investment. You need to hire the right person and let them do a review of what your AI utilization is. what they recommend going forward. Every company I say needs an AI policy. Even if you're a solo entrepreneur, you need an AI policy. How are you using AI in your business? For bigger companies, how your different teams and people are communicating, how they're using AI, sharing resources, making sure that everybody's systems talk to each other. If you're not sure what your AI policy should be, go to whichever LLM model you're using, ask it to help you draft your AI policy. Part of it is even an ethic component of it. I'm giving you I'm throwing out a lot of stuff at you, but I would tell
No,
you
it
that
just the irony is not lost on me. Use AI to build your AI policy.
yes, I tell people all the time, it's like AI is a great resource. You just have to recognize at the end of the day that you have to put in your own knowledge. Like, for example, I'll tell a small business owner, you need to understand business law. You cannot use AI to make legal decisions for you, but you need to have a foundation of understanding so you know what you need to be looking out for and being aware of. So you can go to AI and ask them, give me a crash course. This is what type of business I'm in. This is my issues. This is blah, blah, blah. You can just get some knowledge so that you know what to be aware of, how to protect yourself, and when you need to bring a lawyer in. So I agree. AI is great for teaching you how to, I mean, we all use AI like this, where like my Zoom wasn't working yesterday because I had been on a different Zoom and it messed up somebody else's Zoom. It messed up my hosting and AI solved it for me. Or it's even like I was trying to figure my frit if something happened. AI solved it for me. Use it in your personal life, use it in your business. Just have guardrails. And I always tell people, please do not use AI as an emotional support. That is one thing that AI is not for. I know everybody hears the horror stories out there, and I'm sure that it applies within our own communities as well. But, you can discuss with AI, like I'll write an email and I'll say, okay, this sounds really mean and angry and nasty. And I'm not a mean, angry, or nasty person, but I'm saying the tone that it's conveying is expressing this. Can you help me write it? That's how I'll use AI for the emotional piece of it, but I will not use it as an emotional advisor.
Absolutely. What really fascinated me about your journey when I first came across your lecture that you gave about AI, obviously, is that it's such a new field. I mean, it's evolving so much in the past couple of years, but when push comes to shove, AI consultants are very, very new. So, how did you come to that aha moment of like, I'm going to do a business about this? And what should the business look like since you weren't probably able to model it off any other businesses because they don't really exist yet? Maybe a few do, but it's not a widespread thing.
So that's a great question. So I always remind people I'm a business strategist first. I help people grow. I help them identify where they're leaving money on the table. I help them identify what's not working in their business. And I'm very grateful for all my years of experience that most businesses, I'm pretty quick at analyzing the problem and then figuring out what the solution is or what they need to bring in for the solution. So I was doing a lot of helping with the implementation of the solution, and obviously had different type of packages, different type of retainer agreements. And then once I started doing AI and recognizing that there's two parts to AI. There's the understanding of it and what solution you need, and then the actual integration of it. So for a while, I was debating if I wanted to be doing the integration, not me personally, but having a team doing the integration. And I realized that's not where I want to put my energy on. I listened to my inner voice. I realigned myself. It's been a year of going back and forth and trying different scenarios with different clients. And I've listened to myself, what excited me and what parts of what I had been doing. So it wasn't based on a financial model per se. And we're still that's something that's evolving, which everybody is struggling with. And I definitely
Every new business has that
right.
challenge. That's not unique to this business.
And I always approach things with value first. So like I say, I share a lot of valuable resources and information, and I'm very happy to do that. And I'm like, you know what? I feel like not everybody's my ideal client, and I am selective who I take on. You know, Coming from a Wall Street salary, I can't charge the fees that somebody who went to a coaching class for, who took 3 classes and hung out a shingle, which I'm so impressed for them for doing that, but that's not my fee structure. So for me, it's like, if you're my ideal client, you're going to hire me anyways because you want that expertise or you don't want to be doing X, Y, and Z. And for everyone else, let me share knowledge with you. You're not my ideal client anyways. Why can't I help you out? And that ties into my giving back and giving value. So so I'm still experimenting with the model. I've spent the last quarter really analyzing what parts of my business I want to take into 2026. And each client's different. Like, for example, some of my clients think they have an AI problem. They have a strategy problem. Some of my clients have a strategy and an AI problem. I don't want to say problem. It's more that they're at a growth inflection point, and what do they need next to get there? So I can't say I have a specific model. I take it on a client by client basis, but really my big model is integrating strategy and AI. That's my thing. It's really, they're not two separate things, and you can't really look at one without the other in most cases. And it's really what a particular client needs. That's really what I'm here to service and do, is understanding what your needs are, what your business model is. And yes, I take all my previous clients and all my experience, but I really try to be focused on what's your solution and what's going to not just give you short-term growth, because that's also a very big thing for me, is not looking at the quick wins. Like if a client says to me, I have a specific problem, I can give you a Band-Aid, but in 2 months from now, you're going to have even bigger problem and you don't really solve anything. And some clients are like, I can't, I need the Band-Aid first, and then we'll talk in a month from now. And I'm respectful of that. I lay out the options, and that's part of the evaluation. If you're telling me that's what you need, then we have to come up with a plan that works for you. I can advise you what I think the better plan is, but then we have to make the secondary plan work better for you.
Makes sense. Do you think that different AI models, I mean, we could list the most famous ones,
Right.
ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Sintra. I mean, there's hundreds of them out now. Do
Yeah.
you use different models for different needs and different clients, or in your professional experience, do they mostly offer the same user experience and value once they're trained properly?
So I'll tell you a few things. The LMs, I say, are in, back to my politics, are in an arms race. So meaning, it's one-upmanship. Gemini did Nano Banana, then Chat GPT did their 1.5. Don't ask me. They keep changing the names in the models each week. Relax. It's Max Pro, it's Max Super Key, it's for. So they're always looking at what each other is doing, and they're trying to mimic it, copy features, accelerate. Chat GPT they had this whole red alert in the end of November, they put some things on the back burner so that they can get this 1.5 model out on the image generation that everybody's now using and saying, wow, it's incredible. So when you work with an LLM, you are building a knowledge base. You're giving it context. You're sharing information about you. When you constantly switch between model to model, you're losing that value that you created. So there are, you can extract that value. You can say to the LLM, tell me everything you know about SVG advisory. Tell me everything you know about Sarah Holtz, but you're losing some functionality. You're losing the knowledge base that you built. So we generally don't recommend switching between models. What I generally recommend is, let's say you're a copywriter, right? And writing is a really big part of what you do. Then Claude is amazing for writing. City for years was my number one tool. Years, we're not talking that many years, but was my number one tool for research. And now we've also started saying Grok because of Twitter. Everything that happens, it's on Twitter first. So it's become an incredible knowledge base as an LLM. Gemini, some people like it because of Google and what their office stuff work on. So I always tell people, think about what your business does and which one is traditionally built better for what you need to be doing. But most businesses, pick one, stick to it. Part of your AI policy and knowledge and learning is be aware what other models are doing and have some time built into your schedule for. Just to go off tangent for a minute, I'm a very big believer that every person needs to be learning about AI on a regular basis. So ask AI, give it some parameters, prompt it, and ask it to give you a list of the best newsletters that you should be reading daily or weekly based on your industry, your knowledge, your tasks, your expertise. Even when I started with AI, I tell people, I didn't even know what an LLM meant. I didn't understand what any of these terminologies, what anything meant. And you have to realize ChatGPT initially was not based on updated data. When it first started, it had a
Right.
database of data it put in there. So that's why we were going to Perplexity, because Perplexity was actually current information. That's how Perplexity became the leader in research. So every person, I don't care where you are, even if you're not in business, you should be reading about AI because, like I say, it's a utility. You need to know how to use it. So that was just a side tangent. So I really believe in don't switch between models. There's always going to be new models coming out. The other piece what I want to say is, which is what we're using and which what we're seeing for 2026, one of our predictions is that there's going to be a lot of consolidation. So a lot of little tools, the big LLMs are going to start offering those features. And I'll give you an example. Um, for example, our dashboard probably has over 150 tools. And when I'm doing different things, I can choose which LLM I want to use. So when I'm writing content, use Claude. I use Claude. When I'm doing research, I'll use Grox or Perplexity. When I'm doing, analysis, I'll generally use ChatGPT, and sometimes I'll run it against each other and I'll compare it. Now, the benefit of an app like a dashboard is you end up paying less money. I'm not paying for each one of these tools. My monthly rate is a joke compared to the fact that I have access to 100 tools. And to give you an example of consolidation, when I created my first AI headshot in the summer, I used Aragon, which was a tool. When I just did last week an updated headshot, I used our dashboard and it had a combination of different tools that creates Allura, which I just want to say it's like your fake AI person, it's your clone. It's all built into this dashboard that I'm paying for monthly, and I use 3 or 4 different tools. I actually first, you upload pictures of yourself, and then I had it help me write the prompt and create my new set of professional headshots. So that's kind
Mhm.
of the projection that we're seeing, that you're not really always going to be saying, I'm a ChatGPT person. You're going to have a dashboard that have different tools, and you're going to pick which ones you want to use for what feature and what function.
And in your dashboard, do you have access to all those tools? Like, I could just open up that dashboard and use Grok and use ChatGPT interchangeably, or that's not how it works?
It's a drop-down model. Let's say for writing, for chatting, like when you chat, it's a drop-down model, and I'm picking which of my LLMs I want to use. And even within the conversation, I could switch back and forth. So like if I'm not getting the
Fascinating.
results I want, and then for example, in image or video creation, I mean, it's what the affiliate has created, what they're using, the best of what's out there. So for example, right now for presentation, I think they're basically using Gamma, which I'm a big Gamma proponent. But let's say for image, for video creation, you can choose between Nano Banana, between Flux, there's so many different ones. And it kind of even gives you parameter. If you're doing this, use that. And there's even in the dashboard, there's a separate part where you say, this is what I'm trying to do. Tell me which of the tools that are in the dashboard I should use. So it's fascinating. And then there's even they've created separate tools through Lovable where like, for example, if you want to create a book cover or you want to, I'm just trying to think what's out there. You want to do a brand voice. It's a specific tool that they created using the best tools that are out there. And they're constantly updating it. It's not my firm's product. It's an affiliate that I had gotten introduced to them through my crazy exploration and all the emails and all the reading and the webinars I joined. And I've been following them, being a part of their universe for the past year. And like I always tell people, like a lot of the knowledge that I have that I share publicly, I'm hearing it from them. They're part of my team that gives me knowledge and I learn from. So I'm
Yeah.
saying, so we're going to see that. You're going to start seeing consolidation. You're going to start, and that's what, let's say, ChatGPT is trying to do with their new image generation. They're trying to bring everything into ChatGPT. They just announced a new thing called apps. I don't know what they call it, but you can now connect directly in ChatGPT to your Canva, to your Spotify. So they're trying to make themselves a dashboard also.
Yeah. There's so much expansion. It's
That's
sometimes
why
like exhausting.
pick one of the major ones and stick with it because you can make yourself crazy switching back and forth. You have a business to run, right? You have a
Yes.
business to run. You're not looking, I mean, I spend hours a day. Most of my day is with either strategy work for clients, meeting, talking to clients, and analyzing, doing research for them, coming up with solutions and AI. But that's not what most people's businesses are.
I was actually just going to ask you, what percentage of your day would you say you're doing client work, and what percentage would you say is research that will help you build this business and build your own knowledge base?
I think it's really a combination because as I'm doing stuff for clients, I'm like, wait, this is how we've been doing it. Let me see if there's a better AI solution for them or better AI solution for us. So, I never like to say this is what I did for the last 2 clients and cookie cutter because that's not the value I provide. AI allows me to do that. It knows all my cookie cutter stuff. And I have it really customized to how we think and how I think and our resources and our knowledge base and our experience. But I never want to be presenting something to a client that's I've done for 3 other clients, because then I feel like I'm not giving you the best of the best. There are pieces of it, that's why when I moved from Wall Street to helping small businesses, non for profits, and now my clients are some entrepreneur startups, some small size could be multi-million dollar companies. We just use that term. They're not Fortune 500 companies. So there's basic concepts and fundamentals of strategy, like we do the 6-week business reset challenge, which you may have seen. That doesn't matter what industry you're in, what business you're in. You need to know why you started this business. You need to know who your ideal client is, where they hang out. You need to know your operations, your financials. There's certain pieces of it that doesn't matter which business you're in. So that doesn't change. And that I have structured, but there's so many nuances that I just feel like it's not delivering the best of what I can deliver to but AI has enabled me to service more clients quicker and to provide more. Like I tell people, AI now means you can deliver more, offer more, deliver quicker. Clients are also demanding more. That's something I tell people. Your clients today are very AI savvy, that they're demanding more. They know more. They may be willing to pay more, but they know more. And the other thing is, which I tell people, if you ask me 2 important things for 2026, it's AI and authenticity. Because of AI, people crave real relationships. We're not in person, but they crave real, honest relationships, authentic connections. The more real you are, the more people connect with you. Even, I put out a lot of content out there that either has video angle problems or that has funny things I say or a lot of ums. I don't really care. That's me. That's who you're connecting with. That's who you're hiring. And if you and I don't connect, I'm not everybody's cup of tea, and that's okay. In a candid conversation, I come across very approachable, but I do have this authoritative persona that comes across a lot, sometimes on writing, on in chats, and I'm okay. I lean into my expertise and my knowledge, and being in the industry for 25 years, I'm very proud of that. So it's all about an authentic relationship, and find the people that you connect with. Not everybody has to connect with the same people. It's okay. It's finding the people that
Yeah.
you connect with and give you the value that you need. And I'm a people person, if you haven't figured that out, to my many iterations of my careers, but it doesn't mean it's okay. It's like, I have to say, like, my family is everything to me, and they're my people, and I have a really core group of friends. And then I have all these business acquaintances that have become part of my world, even if they're not clients. And some people I connect with, and we've developed these great relationships, and other people, it's great. We're just not we're just not synergy compatible, but I would also tell people, like, just value your family. They are everything. They will be your biggest cheerleaders. Invest in your family as much as you invest in your business. Coming up on the yard side of my mother-in-law, who I just want to leave people with this. We're women. Relationships are so important. We have our spouses, our family, our siblings. It has been one of the most incredible relationships in my life. I've been very blessed. I had the most amazing in-laws. How do you get me to cry on a AI business? We're coming up on I miss her terribly. And I just want to share with people, like, build your business, this was a special relationship. That was a bonus in my life, and everybody's lives are different. My life is not a typical life. I don't talk a lot about my personal life. I have a wonderful life and I'm very blessed, but it's not the typical, like most people. Wherever these relationships are in your life, like, value them and invest in them. I've made decisions. My father had a stroke in 2011, and my mother now has Parkinson's. So the last 15 years, my siblings and I have been my father's not alive anymore. That has been a big part of some of the career decisions I've made. And I had that luxury of making those decisions, and I'm on a chat of children taking care of their parents. And we all say it is so hard, but you will never regret the time that you invest. So, with your children, with your siblings, and the older I get and the more I go through different life experiences, I see how valuable relationships are. And for some people, it's their friends, and that's okay. I have a great group of friends, but really, if you take anything out of this, building a successful business, build it on your terms. It could be small. My business is not a big business. It's a small business. I keep it lean intentionally, and make sure that, in your pursuit of building your business, you don't forget about the value of real friendships and family, and just enjoy life. It goes really quick.
Yeah, actually, that's something I work with a lot with my clients, especially the younger clients that I work with, is mapping out and making a picture of where do you see your life and your family balance? And a lot of young people can't picture that. They don't know. They only know what their own parents did, whether their mother stayed home, whether their father worked days and nights. But a lot of what I work with younger people is trying to create a picture of what do you want your life to look like? What do you want your family to look like in an ideal scenario? And what career can we find that will balance both your talents and your financial needs and your family needs? And maybe there are some compromises along the way, but rarely does someone say, "Yeah, I'll compromise my family so that I can make the millions," you know? But, as you rightly said, and many of my other guests have said also, like, you can't have it all, or if you can't have it all at the same time. Um,
Right.
Maybe not if you're a woman. So
The
I like
the
to
oth
say, I wish you could, but sometimes you have to trade. Sometimes, depending on
no,
what career you want.
but the other thing I always tell people is where your life is today doesn't mean that's always going to be your life. So even if right
Of
now,
course not.
especially
It
for
won't be.
people starting their career and you're balancing young children and you're balancing different responsibilities and constraints and financial pressures, just understand, which is part of us recognizing everything's from Hashem and being a Baal Amuna B'tachon, understanding that where your life is today, even if you can't see it being differently, doesn't mean the rest of your life. And I mean, we know all the stories and it's hard to imagine when it's for yourself. I mean, if you would have told me when I started NYU in January, I started in the winter, January of whatever year it was, that this is where my life would be, that I would be sitting here in Miami Beach overlooking the ocean that's like right outside my view talking to you and having this career and juggling different family responsibilities. If you would have told me, I would have said, I don't even know where you get to that point from point A to point. So the other thing I would tell people is be open to opportunities. Doesn't mean every opportunity that comes your way is your opportunity. I've declined many opportunities that didn't align with what I wanted. And the other thing I would really say is make Hashem a partner in your business. Hashem, and I don't mean like in a theoretical sense. It's like, work on your bitachon and emuna, whatever that means to you, whether it's saying moda'ani and having three things in mind that you're grateful for when you go to bed at night, whether it's learning something, whether it's just even like recognizing, like before I ever get on a Zoom with a client with any type, I say a parak of Tehillim and just really understanding. And when you recognize that like it's from Hashem, it takes that edge off so that edge doesn't come across with people. Nobody wants to work with someone who is desperate. We don't mind hungry people who are ambitious, but that sense of desperation is not attractive and people sense it. So I feel like it's almost a strategy when you're relying on Hashem and you're saying, Hashem, I'm doing my ishtadlus. This is all from you anyways. And you're going to decide. I always say this, my husband works, I work. And, I say, there's one pipe that's coming into my house. What's feeding that pipe could be his hishtadlus, my hishtadlus, other sources. We just have to do ours, but I have to recognize whatever's meant to be is decided on Rosh Hashanah, and that's what's going to happen to me, not just in my business, but in all parts of life. So of course we have to work hard, and of course we have to give it our all. But when you take that piece out, I actually was going through a month this year where like nothing felt like it was driving and going right. And I was almost felt like, okay, like I got to get control of this because it's going to start seeping into my conversations. And I just said, Hashem, I'm doing this because I'm doing this for X, Y, and Z reason. And part of it is because it makes me happy. It fuels me. I love giving back. But really, it's you're deciding what my life is going to be. And I'm just letting go. And literally in the next week, I think I signed our biggest contract. So I'm just saying, and it doesn't always happen that way. I've had many of opportunities where it doesn't, but I just felt that like I was getting to the point, and I've been doing this for 25 years, where I was getting a little like, "Ah," and I'm like, wait a minute, that's not my MO, and it's all from Hashem, and there are other pipelines into my household, and I don't have to have that pressure that I have to make it come through me. And it's just very freeing. And it also takes away a lot of that mental energy that you could be investing in your business that you're not, because I'm not denying financial realities. I'm not denying people have to pay the bills. I'm not denying that the economy we live in right now is really hard for people. And for young people graduating, it's a scary workforce to get into. So everybody's realities are different, but you need to make Hashem a very active partner in your business. No, I mean, in every part of your life, everything that I've accomplished, everything that I am today, there are opportunities Hashem gave me. This is not, yes, I'm very fortunate. I have the creative from my mother and the analytical from my father. And I recognize that. And I've had amazing opportunities. I was on Wall Street during the internet craze. So people who didn't go to Silicon Valley got incredible opportunities. I never went back to business school. People don't know that about me. I didn't have to. I'm a managing director when I left Wall Street without going to business school because of the internet craze. Hashem provided that for me. It was nothing I did. The different opportunities. So when you recognize that, it's just a very freeing thing. I'm not denying people do their hishtadlus and their pitachon and they're still struggling. I just feel like you have to find a way that Hashem has to be a partner in your business.
I totally, totally agree. I have so much more to ask you, but for now, I think I'll just ask one final question so I don't take up your whole day. Maybe we'll do another episode later
This
on.
was fabulous. It's reminding me of things that I need a reminder of sometimes.
Yeah.
It's terrific. I love it.
Absolutely. One of the things I work with people a lot, and I discuss especially with younger people who have a long runway of their career, is a lot of people are afraid to choose a career that may become obsolete. Like, for example, I come from marketing. And a lot of writing and creative, but a lot of that is being taken over by AI. Accounting and other, like, processing types of careers the same. So a lot of people are afraid to go into those industries because they're afraid, if I have 30, 40, 50 years of a career, I may be training for something and in 5, 10 years be out of a job. Obviously, your new industry, there is a fear that things will change so much. People will already know about AI in 5 years. This career, this pivot that you just built from nothing may evaporate as quickly as it came. What is your advice for people who want to jump on the bandwagon and be pioneers, but are afraid that they may, uh, lose some of their footing to technology we don't even know about yet, or that may not even exist yet?
That is something that is the question that AI companies are struggling with, government is struggling with, companies are struggling with. This is an issue. The job market for recent graduates is really, really tight, and it's going to be hard in those that graduate in May. It is a very hard market, and nobody has a good answer. The only thing I would tell people is find something that excites you. Right? We go back to that. Find something that excites you. Find something that you are always going to make sure you're learning, that you are going to stay on top of the latest developments and be flexible and be open to pivoting and be out there and network and speak to people. There's no good answer. It's also really figuring out, like looking at where the world is today. Nobody has a crystal ball, right? So figuring out where the world is today. And if you like copywriting, right? So even if I have this with another client, they like to do copywriting, right? So they were doing writing for a lot of different type of clients for a specific industry. And they created this amazing business model. Well, now people can use ChatGPT. So they're not her clients anymore, but she found clients who like some people will say, yeah, I can have ChatGPT do my copywriting, but I don't want to be busy with that. I want to be painting and doing art and, whatever it is they're doing. And so there are people who, like, I have another person in my universe who does copywriting for interior designers. So interior designers, right? Everybody today needs a public presence. They need to be marketing. They need to be visible to the people who are their targeted audience. They want to be busy designing a building. They're not interested in doing their marketing and being their content creator. So she's built a little niche for herself, and those are her clients. And so it's finding where there's a need, right? Like we go back to our 6-week business challenge. Like, why did you create this business? What is your business for? And who's your ideal client? So your ideal client you have to be able to pivot and have a new ideal client, but your skill set, and you have to keep developing your skill set. That's what I was doing, right? Because otherwise I would be redundant too. If I was just a strategic business advisor who didn't know AI, well, that doesn't really help anybody anymore because you can't run a business without AI. So I can give you strategy, but if I don't know how the AI integration plays in, then where are we at? So I'm saying you have to keep learning and staying on top of what's happening, but I don't have a good answer. I would be lying to you if I said I had a good answer. I say it's a scary time, you know. For myself, I'm in a different phase in life. So I'm not so worried what's going to happen with AI. And look how even within AI over the past 18 months, my business focus has shifted. So it's more really being flexible, open to opportunities, and really just being aware of what's going on. You know, for example, lawyers, right? There's all these different apps that lawyers are using now that people are concerned it's going to get rid of some legal staff, and it may not. Things have a way of playing itself out. Also, we've seen this through, I don't want to say the industrial revolution because that sounds really ancient, but this is completely different. I've never seen, you know, when I compare it to the internet to AI, the exponential rate and the
Absolutely.
it's mind boggling. So we can't really compare it to anything, but we can look at historical stuff. Eventually it shakes itself out and there will be some type of a new reality. What that is, we don't know, but
Yeah.
that's why I tell people, make sure you're staying involved with AI, reading newsletters, and knowing what's going on.
I also think that AI creates jobs. It does take some jobs away,
Right.
or it does make some jobs evolve for
Yes.
sure, because you're using AI so you can produce faster, produce
Right.
better, whatever. But it also creates a lot of jobs,
The problem is,
prompt masters
right.
and computer type of jobs and all sorts of engineers. And we haven't even hit the tip of the iceberg, and AI consultants even.
Right.
I don't think we've even hit the tip of the iceberg of what AI will create for the job market. Right now, we're like, a lot of people are living in this fear, but I see also a lot of possibility for the early adopters. And that just brings me maybe to a final point, which you touched on also previously, is that a lot of people are not early adopters. They're afraid of change. And I think what I take out of this conversation is optimism about what you can get when you're not afraid to be an early adopter. Because a lot of people are afraid, well, what if I take the wrong path of no new technology and it ends up to be a flop? Or it ends up that I become an expert in Gemini and ChatGPT takes the home the gold crown at the end of the day or whatever. But I think there's so much potential, and the people who are not afraid to go for it are the ones who ultimately will succeed. And I think that you're a very, very good example of that. So
Thank you.
thank you.
No, it's just,
Thank
you
you.
know what? Failure is, we've all had failure. There's not one successful person who will not tell you they've tried different things. You know, I could have, when I left Wall Street officially in 2008 and then 2010 started my firm. And then my father got sick in 2011. I made some decisions over those years to balance family stuff. And I went down this path of working pro bono as opposed to starting my consultancy advisory firm as a profit business to start. I don't regret that. I don't consider it a failure. And other decisions I made, even within my current business, that's how we learn and grow. And any successful person you talk to will talk to you how they've had more failures than successes, and their failures have propelled their successes. You have to be open to that. Like if you recognize that's part of business, and even choosing a career, and nobody wants to choose a career that's going to be obsolete. But recognizing that you can't be afraid of risk. Now, obviously, everybody has to quantify what type of risk works for them and what they're comfortable with and where, like I say, their personal realities. But you just have to, take the opportunity. Look, there are people who are now getting involved in being involved. There's a whole industry, the AI data centers that are being built, right? Well, that's an industry that's right now. Is that going to be really relevant in 5 to 7 years? There are people saying right now it's an opportunity. I'm going to take that opportunity and then I'll see what happens. I mean, I'll leave you with one piece. Like I say, I have the most amazing sister-in-laws, my mother-in-law, the women in my life. I remember when I've been trying different things, and my sister said to me once, you open a door, you try it. You never know where it leads to. You have to go down that path and be open to it. Was the best advice. I don't remember specifically what it was about, but it kind of, I know we're in my career track. She's like, you take the opportunities, you see where it leads, and it may you surprise yourself. So be open to opening those doors, taking the opportunities. You don't always have to have a plan, right? We believe. You don't always have to have a plan. It's important to have a plan. I'm a strategist. Trust me, I believe plans. But there has to be that I'm going to try this. There's a solid reason why I'm trying it. I can't worry in 15 years that my industry is going to be obsolete.
Right.
You just,
I
you know,
I thank you so much for all of these insights. Um, for so much
it was an
sharing so
honor.
much knowledge about AI. I really hope that a lot of people will come away inspired and interested in learning more about the industry, which is still emerging in front of our eyes.
Yes, and I invite everyone, please reach out to me. I love sharing knowledge. I mean, if you ask me how I spend my day, part of my day is sharing knowledge. Like you will see me being on different chats, which for strategy for 2026, I'm not going to be so out there because we're focusing on slightly different things, but please reach out to me. And I love sharing knowledge and resources. If you're not sure which newsletter you should be reading, I'll give you a prompt we give our clients. However, there's a lot of stuff I'm happy to share. So reach out, but really, Sari, thank you so much. This was really an honor,
Thank
and I'm
you.
so happy to have been able to share. And I've learned so much from you too. So thank you. It was really a great
Thank,
conversation. Thank you so much.
thank you.